All right. So Matt Walsh did this thing, The Villains Who Were Right. This is a great little video, but I really was curious what you thought about this particular part of it.
Number five, finally, is Beauty and the Beast. Now, we've talked about this before. I consider it to be one of the most important issues that I discuss. It probably deserves to be the subject of its own documentary. Gaston is the quintessential.
Just to make sure you understand the context, he's going to make the argument that Gaston is the hero and the
Mhm.
Beast is the villain. Okay.
Okay.
Villain who was actually the hero of the story.
Hello, Belle.
Bonjour, Gaston.
And I will insist on this until my dying breath. We're supposed to hate Gaston from the beginning because why? He's manly and in good shape. He eats a lot of eggs. Is that his crime? What has he done wrong?
It's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas, he's thinking.
They never explain it. And the anti-Gaston propaganda is laid on thick from the very beginning. But even in spite of that, it's clear who the real protagonist is. We see Gaston early in the film,
What a pleasant surprise.
right? He's dressed to the nines. He visits Belle to propose marriage.
Say you'll marry me.
And he's obviously an advocate of traditional marriage and the nuclear family. He even says that. He makes a pitch for the nuclear family, traditional marriage to Belle. He's explaining.
And we'll have 6 or 7.
Dogs?
No, Belle. Strapping boys like me.
You know, he wants to have children. He wants to have a family. It's a very lovely thing. Belle turns him down and pushes him into a mud pit. Total humiliation. And yet by the end, Gaston is still willing to risk his life to rescue this woman who humiliated him from the clutches of a beast. And how did Beauty end up in that situation? Yeah, she initially went to the beast castle to save her dad or whatever, I think.
How did you find him?
But she had many opportunities to escape after that point. Like she could have just walked out. I mean, she was in the prison cell and then she's invited to dinner. And from that point on, she doesn't go back to the prison cell. So she could have left anytime. But she stays because she ends up falling in love with a non-human creature who looks kind of like an evil water buffalo. Keep something in mind. Belle didn't know that the beast was really a human prince. She had no idea about that. Okay. That's true. Look up on that. You can go back and watch the movie. She never is aware of that fact. That was just luck of the draw. So as far as she knew, she was entering into a romantic relationship with a member of another species. Yeah. That's a simple fact. Now, of course, poor Gaston, he didn't know about any of this. He didn't know that the beast was really a prince. He didn't know that the woman of his dreams had fallen in love with a giant mutant mountain goat. All he knew from his perspective was that Beauty had been imprisoned by a monster. Her own dad told Gaston that.
Who's got Belle locked in a dungeon? A beast. Horrible, monstrous face.
And so he rallies the troops. He marches off to fight for her and save her. This is the villain of the story. The man who ultimately gave his very life for the woman he loved. And the monster who kidnapped a young woman is supposed to be the one we're rooting for. That's just wrong. And I won't stand for it.
All right. Well, what do you think, Sid?
Well, I think there are a few things that he misinterpreted,
Okay.
but, like, for instance, when I honestly couldn't tell if he was joking about, like, the anti-propaganda because of him saying, women shouldn't read, they'll get ideas. So I think, but, like, part of what he was saying, I agree with. Like, he wanted, like, his goal was to be, like, the man of the relationship, like, super manly, like, all that stuff, and, I think there are a few problems is that he was extremely narcissistic to the point where I'm not sure that he would, um, listen to Belle at all, like, in this concept that we're talking about of, like, a household vote or, like, the man has the responsibility to treat the woman well so that he'll represent her well, like, all that stuff. I'm not sure that he would have fulfilled that. Um, but the the whole part about her, like, falling in love with the beast even though he's, like, a different species. I mean, I did wonder about that too, but I think it was also the beast did exhibit some of those manly qualities of protection and all that stuff, except that he actually saw Belle as a person with ideas
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So, um, there are parts that I'm like, he has a point, and then there's some parts that I'm like, I feel like he didn't. I'm not sure that he knows the story well enough. Um, yeah, like at the end, he wasn't trying to rescue Belle because Belle had already like come to
Right.
them in the village. Um, so she was fine because the beast let her go, but he went to kill the beast anyway. So there was that. But yeah,
Well, I think one of the things so within the symbolic world of the story,
yeah,
it's not fair to talk about the beast like, um, all of a sudden as a literal other species.
yeah.
The question that I'm wrestling with, and he's making a really interesting point that I really think it's worth wrestling through, and that is that, to your point, the thing that made the beast, attractive was that he was he was recovering from selfish narcissism, right?
Hmm,
As a so
yeah,
you have basically, and then in Gaston was, basically unreformable. And you kind of, the sense is, the whole idea behind Beauty and the Beast is there's a dream that girls have to reform, the bad boy, like to there's an attractiveness to sort of a guy um who's struggling with ethics and who he is, but he has to be reformable. So this is the real danger that a woman has. You
yeah.
you you kind of you want to get somebody who's raw but good material. And the story is that she had, of course, zero romantic interest in the beast until all of a sudden she discovers that he is reformable. And
Mm,
I think that the point that the the movie is making about Gaston is that he's unreformable. There's no you are stuck with somebody for the rest of your life who will only be looking out for himself. Now, part of looking out for himself is he does want to raise a family and he wants to have a wife, but they frame that as a wife purely for his own preferences. Like, and they really try to make that point. And so I think one of the things that's interesting, if I'm going to try to take Matt Walsh's argument seriously, and I love the way he frames everything. It's fascinating, and
I know
it's a
he's
really
hilarious.
it's a really good question. Um, and I think the way I guess I would ask, and I'm curious what you think is that if you were to write a story where what the female lead wants is um, a reformable man versus a hyper capable narcissistic man.
Mm.
Um, what what is the right answer there? Is there any clarity around, and that is it better, is Belle making the better choice, um, from literarily? What do you think?
I think so because it's hard to see how someone's gonna change. And I feel like she was smart in her like she's a very smart girl. That's like her character trait of like, yes, she's beautiful, but like and Gaston only wants her because she's the most beautiful one in the village and stuff, but she has a brain. She like thinks very deeply about these things, so she could tell that he was being shallow. Which is not what a girl should look for. Like there were the other like the three airhead girls like in the other song. It's like, oh Gaston, Gaston. It's like they're painted kind of ridiculously for a reason because it's like you do not want to be like that. You need
Yeah.
to use your brain, make sure that you are finding a guy that is reformable, that has shown evidence that he can reform. Like, yeah, with the beast, it's an extreme example because he had to be transformed into a beast in order and like be hideous in order to like work on himself and not just, like, his outward appearance, like, things like that, which I like stories like that because there's one in Hell's Moving Castle, um, where a girl is, like, very insecure and, like, has to stop thinking about her appearance and start, like, working on herself in order to feel lovable, and so, it's slightly different, but, you can either be super self-obsessed in the way that you hate yourself or love yourself a lot. And that's an issue that is very difficult to have as a partner. So it's good to like be like if you're considering someone as a mate, it's good that it's good to get them when they're already on their journey of
Yeah.
or like towards the end of their journey. Like I don't expect anyone to be perfect, especially if you're getting married young. You might not have like the a guy that's very secure yet, but if he is like well on his way, that's definitely better than a guy that is still way over there in the narcissistic category.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to be critical of that kind of thing, especially.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think that that's the part of this. The challenge here is that you want Belle to be with somebody who's not completely formed. And part of when you're getting married young, you can tell Gaston is like he's already at the very top. He seems almost like a widower or somebody who's been divorced. Like he's fully his identity is so formed and so
Made it.
complete. Yeah. That I think that that's part of what is really unattractive to somebody as open as Belle, who wants to, who's reading and growing and thinking like, am I really going to be yoked to this guy who can't ever think a new thought? So yeah, but I love this. This is a really fantastic.
What I do like about the um like the contrast between Gaston and the Beast is that it's not like alpha beta situation going on where like I mean maybe
Yeah.
let's say Gaston is like an alpha. But
Yes.
it's not that you have to not be manly because the
Right.
Beast like when it, like the first scene that made Belle like realize that he was actually cool was that he was fighting off a bunch of wolves. Like that's so manly, like
Yes.
protecting her and like sacrificing himself. He gets injured and then she takes care of him. Like that's very like feminine, masculine, like really sweet. Like I love that scene. Where she's like helping him like clean the wound and stuff like that. Like that's very like picturesque,
Yes.
feminine masculine relationship. So I like that they didn't have to sacrifice his masculinity in order to show that he's a good person and he'll like take care of her.
Yeah.
So
I remember Joseph Campbell once described the most lovable character in many stories is the Han Solo character who's like super selfish, but can't stop himself from being unselfish when somebody he loves is in danger. And I think that's definitely the a character quality you see in the Beast.
mm,
That idea, that's kind of what creates almost a maximally lovable character because you're primed to think he's evil. And then all of a sudden you discover that he's not, that he's really good and that he's pretending to be evil.
that's so true.
Yeah, that does something to yeah, to your heart. That's in a story that's really powerful.
I can think of so many books where like people fall so hard for the guy that is exactly like that.
Yeah.
As often the love interest trope.
Yep.
So